So I'm going to begin Parsha Shelach, and I call this the Shir at the edge of the land, which child of Avraham? So the sin of the spies is usually understood as the story of the lack of faith, followed by its tragic consequences. And in our Shir today, through several nuances and subtleties in the text, I like to suggest a different perspective and a more human understanding of the generation of the wilderness. And I was thinking that it's really kind of like a continuation of the theme. I guess that's the way I keep thinking in the similar patterns, what we discovered last week. And I know that it's a bit of a twist on the standard ideas that we find in the Torah. But I'm going to explain it as we go forward. But I really am more convinced that this is an approach that I've really been developing through Parsha Shmos and Vayera, and now continuing with Bamidbar in different ways. It seems to be a pattern that I've been following. So where are we? Today's stand at the edge of the land of Israel, right? And they're about to go in, right? There's a dramatic moment. We have the camp all set up. And now it's going to be time that we're going to go right into the land of Israel. We're at the edge of the Sinai geography that well, but that's pretty close to Israel. So it's really the next step is, wow, we're going to get there. We're going to get to Israel, right? From Egypt to Sinai and then to Israel. And we'll continue, right, our destiny of Bnei Israel and the children of Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, right? Because that was part of the covenant and the land, right? It was the progeny that was promised to Avraham as well as Eretz Israel. So we have, thank God, at this point, we have over 600,000 men from the age of 20 to 50 and hundreds of thousands more just by extrapolation. So we have children, and now the second part of the bris of Avraham is to enter the land of Israel. What a momentous time that was. So they're about to exchange the miracles of the wilderness for the responsibilities of covenantal life in the land. And at Paran, the descendants of Abraham faced a question that every one of us eventually faces. It wasn't the technical aspect. We defeat the Canaanites and the indigenous population of the land of Israel. It was not, do we believe in God? But the question was much deeper. Who are we going to be? Avram had two sons, and we'll see that one son dwelled in Paran, Dafka, and one son inherited the covenant and the land. And now, standing in Paran itself, the descendants of Yitzhak faced a profound question. Which child of Abraham would they choose to become? So that's why I call this Shir at the edge of the land, which child of Avraham. A reminder, please turn off your phones. All right. And so we're going to explore just some basic textual ideas. And we will uncover, I think, a deep idea of what's going on in the Parsha. So the first idea that I want to explore with you is the whole question of the sending of the spies. There's a tradition that just sending the spies was up. Why should they even do that? Oh, it's a shanda. Why should they even try? They didn't have faith. They should have just accepted everything 100% and then gone right in the Talmudic phrase of the assumption. The assumption was, oh, it's a shanda that they have to go in and check the land. What? They didn't trust Hashem. That's a standard idea. I'm going to follow the line of thinking that the one translated, I don't remember which translation I used, but they say that then it would be a problem. But these three examples show us that there was a discretion involved, but when there was a discretion involved, there was a potential for failure. So this is what these three sources tell me, that there was a potential for failure. Was it inevitable? No, but it was a potential for failure, right? The question, should we or shouldn't we do it? Hashem gave them the opportunity to do it. All right, let's see what you're going to do. That's the way it was set up. And that's what the opportunity was for the Jewish people. Would they be able to make the right choices or not? So the sin of the spies was neither predestined nor inevitable. But God gave the Jewish people the dignity of choice. He gave people in Israel the freedom to make the choice. All right, so this is the nuances that we find in the text up until now. So the test was what kind of a report they bring back. And so Moshe, I'm not going to go through every pasuk, it would take too long, but we read it already a few times in Shul, because it's right in Perek Rishon. Right, so Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, okay, you're going to go out and I'm going to give you the document, right? I want you to answer these kinds of questions. What kind of a land is it? What kind of a people are residing in it? Are there fortresses, etc.? And is the land obviously good or bad? Right, so he wants them to observe and then make a report, right? It's like sending out a committee, and the committee is going to, right, at a shul, okay, we don't know, we have to explore such and such an issue, and so we're going to make an observation, we're going to take down all the information, and then we're going to make a report on it, right? So they were supposed to just document whether the land was fertile or not, whether the people there were strong or not, whether there were fortresses or not, and they were supposed to bring back some evidence of the fruit. So what he provided for was the objective criteria, and he is trying to, I think, my sense is that Moshe is trying to really believe in you guys. I really want you to, and this is what you should bring back. Right? Bring back just these facts, right? As we said in 60 years ago, Dragnet, just the facts, just the facts. That's what Moshe was trying to do. Moshe was trying to say to the people, the spies, hey, just give me the facts. As we said before, there was a tension how they were going to use that freedom. So Moshe tried to kind of guide them a little, just give me the facts. Right? Because if you start using the subjective feelings of what you're seeing, then we might get into trouble. From sensing that there was always that tension. But again, the tension was there. But just because there was a tension and there was a potential for failure does not mean that we shouldn't try. Moshe was trying to almost everything they say was true. They they give we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes. Right? So what does that say about the people? These was great. Well, but that's the second part of it. The first part, that's why I split it up, because the first part is, where were they? What did they view about themselves? They didn't have a very high opinion of themselves. Even though they were great Anashim, they were called Anashim, and the Meforshim tell us that they were great people. They were tzaddikim, and they were great leaders. But even the great leaders suffered from this feeling of inferiority. So, and if you feel inferior, and then you're going to project that inferiority onto others. If we were, so were we in their eyes. And the Meforshim, how did they know? How did they know? What did they go up and ask? What do you think about the Jewish leaders that are observing or not? They didn't know. So now it's like levels of projection. Thank you. I love the therapists that are here. Levels of projection. So they stemmed from their own sense of lack of self-worth. And then they projected that onto what they thought, again, paranoid ideation, what they thought other people were saying, were thinking about that. So the report becomes dominated by self-perception. So they have gone beyond what their job was. So therefore, it was contagious among the people. Right? The people, the people might have said, leaders and say, no, we're going to, we are going. The identity crisis, right? So, so this was where the failure generated from. So, going on to page 3, and I know you're happy that I actually put numbers. I was able to do it successfully. I'm such a technical genius. Okay, so we're going to go to the top of 3 and deal with Ramban's field test. So according to the Ramban, and we get this from the Akeda, it says Elohim Nisa and Avraham. It says that God tested Abraham, and so what the Ramban says that a test is, it's not a test like we have in school. It's not the same thing. The test that we're talking about now is to bring out the potential into reality. Right, so this is a very, very important distinction. You might say that a test in school also, really, that's really what it is. It just shows you, it gives you the opportunity to display your knowledge. So it brings out the opportunity to show what you're made of. But in any event, Ramban also believes that sending the spies was valid and legitimate, right? Because we see later on in history that Yoshua sent out spies. He was called Meraglim, right? And the word Meragel really means to spy out. And, the idea of covert operation, to spy. But in here, we never called Meraglim, by the way. It's not Lator as Haaretz. And some of the commentaries point out, and many modern commentaries point out as well, what is a Latour? What does that mean? Like, yeah, like the English word. It's fascinating how sometimes Hebrew words um, come up to be like English words. So Latour et haaretz can mean to tour. So right there, even the Torah there is not, it's not, it's hinting that it was simply Latour, is to walk around and to observe, to bring back information. So that's really what their purpose was, right? To go around and gather, um, right? But when we hear Miraglim up, it's like, and that's what the rabbinic, the Chazal, that's all the rabbinic, the rabbis have used the word. That's what we call it, the sin of the spies of faith Miraglim. But really, they were Tariq. And so when you think of spies, then you might color the understanding that what they were doing was surreptitious and something devious about that. But we're not going with that interpretation. The sin occurred when they overstepped their boundaries and added their own subjective evaluation. So they failed the test not by looking confidence and erode their trust in Hashem. So a Nitzayon is a test in order to actualize your potential, right? And so that's why we see that Avraham actualized his potential. After the Akedah, he really showed that he was the appropriate father of the Jewish people and would be able to bear the covenant of land and people that Hashem was proposing. But here, Bnei Israel showed that they were not ready to carry on, that it was still a covenantal moment. It was the covenantal moment of, can you carry on the message of Abraham or not? And that's really my mahalach, my approach is centered on. I'm not saying, obviously, for sure, the sin of the desert, they failed, right? And the Dor HaMidbar failed. I'm not arguing that they did it. I was only arguing last week that Hashem it was still covenantal, right? Failure does not mean, a covenant does not mean perfection. Covenant means that you can carry on even if you fail and you got to try again. That's really my whole approach. So those who like last week, we had a question of, really, can you really say that there was anything positive to say about the Dor HaMidbar? How can you say anything positive? We see how horrible they were. True, but they're still covenantal. That's all I'm trying to bring out. The whole discussion last week on Shomer Mishmeret. It's still enough to be able to continue the covenant on, and we'll see that that's true here. So now we have to explore a little bit more what these challenges are and these tests are with respect to because it's going to really ground 22. It says Vayinasu osi ze eser amim below shamu b'koli. So even here, right, Hashem says that the Jewish people in the Dor HaMidbar challenged me 10 times. We don't even have all of those 10 times in the Torah. Right? So I'm not arguing that they were perfect. Right? The Torah itself had it rough with the Jewish people in the desert. They kept on testing and challenging and failing many times. Right? And so we have this from the Gemara in Haraphin. Tanya, from Rabbi Yehuda, it was taught in the Brisa, the name of Rabbi Yehuda, Eser Nisyonos Nisu Aboseinu LaKadosh Baruch Hu. There were 10 times that our forefathers Right? So we have the evidence that this is the Jewish people in Israel. But what I'm still going to keep you. Hashem also, if you understand, that's what the covenant is. Hashem is tested whether he's going to continue with us or not. And he still stays with us. That's the test of Hashem. And this is what I think the real thread of this whole thing is. It's the relationship of the Jewish people, Hashem, right? Because it was a test of Hashem. Nisu Aboseinu LaKadosh Baruch Hu. We think of these as what the tests are that we didn't pass the test. Or Avraham had 10 tests, but we also see that Hashem had tests, and Hashem passes the test because he still continued with the Jewish people. All right, so the fact is that they don't call it the Achas B'Meraglim. I would have thought that it would have been that they sinned with the Meraglim, but they call it the Midbar Paran, in the desert of Paran. Big deal. Why? What's Midbar Paran? Who cares? Do you grow up in Gator or anywhere hearing about Midbar Paran? It's an amazing place. No, but if you look at the Parsha and you look at it closely, that's the first pasuk. It says that he sent them named Midbar Paran, and it struck me. Who cares where they were? We know where they were. Why does it have to tell me that he sent them Dafka from Midbar Paran? Why does the Gemara have to say that this was a test in Midbar Paran? Why Dafka the location? It really doesn't matter, does it? We know that they tested him. They should have said, just like they said, Becheda Egel, they didn't say they tested them at Sinai, that they tested them at Paran. So now Paran, what is more important than Sinai? If the location was important, then they should have said that Vayal, that it was at Sinai, but now it's Paran. Well, big deal, Paran. So that's what bothered me. So now we have to understand, well, what does Paran mean in the Torah? So let's go back to Bereshis 21. An amazing thing. Vayeshev Amid Paran. Who was the previous person that dwelt in the wilderness of Paran? I'm asking you, who was it? Yishmael. Whoa, wait a second. We're Bnei Israel, we're the children of Avraham, and right before we go into Eretz Yisrael, we have to stay in the inn that is hosted by the Bnei Ishmael. Wow, amazing. Wow, let that sink in for a second. We're going from Sinai and we're going to Israel, but wait a second, we have to stop in Paran. We read this like nothing, right? Though we have Balkori here. We read in the Midbar Paran. If I were dramatizing based on where we're going here now, and you will see that there's much more to it, I would make one of those dun 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 dun, because it's a dun 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 moment. The Jewish people stop in the land of Ishmael before they enter Eretz Yisrael. Wow. You ever noticed that before? It's amazing. They're in the place of it. So the question, this is what I'm trying to suggest then. Wait a second. They have to look at Ishmael, and are we going to become more like Ishmael, or are we going to become more like Yitzchak? That's the choice. Which child of Abraham are we going to be like? And that's the issue that's going on. right? So we see also in Bereshit 16 that Ishmael is called a Hera Adam, right? It sounds very much like Aram, right? They share the letters in common, not a knockdown proof, but it's an associative idea. But then the next idea that we have is from Devarim, which is, I should have put it just logically and rhetorically. I just kept up with the biblical chronology. And here's a real powerful. We said, hey, by Yomer Hashem, it's in Hazinu. It's talking about Jewish history. And it's talking about the giving of the Torah. So this is momentous. And then what does it say? V'zarach mi seir, right? Shown upon Seir. I'm not going to get into that, but who is Seir? You know, from the Haggadah? It was Esav, who, and Esav was the son of, right. So we're talking about the nation, the children of Avraham. And then we have Hosea Mehar Haran from the mountain of Paran. And who is Paran? Yishmael. Okay, so now you get it. So what is this? What is this talking about? We have no evidence of this in the Torah. This is the only place where we have. But the Midrash has to come and explain what is Esav and Ishmael, what do they have to do here with the giving of the Torah? So I'm sure that many of you have heard the Midrash that says Hashem brought the Torah to every nation of the world. Have you all heard? Let me just show of hands. How many of you have heard that Midrash? It's well known. The source is here. No one knows the source, but it comes from here because it means that Hashem brought the Torah to every nation of the world. I'm not going to go through the whole Midrash, but it doesn't just limit it to the Esavites or the Ishmaelites. It talks about, you know, the children of Noah and Moab and I don't know this. We like to murder. I'm not even going to get into thou shalt not commit adultery. Not going to get into that one. But whatever it was, they looked in the Torah and said, "No, we don't. I don't thank you. We're fine. We're okay. We don't want your Torah." Right. So, just for the emphasis for our purpose today, we went and found the children of Ishmael and asked them, "Will you accept the Torah?" They said, "No," because Ishmael is to be wild. So he doesn't want to be bound by these kinds of ethical rules of ethical conduct. So they say, "No, thank you." The Jewish people accepted it. Okay, great. So, but the point here is that Paran now represents, for our purpose, it represents the choice of the Ishmaelites not to follow in the path of Avraham Avinu. And they're on the outside of Israel, looking in. So on the cusp of entry into the land of Israel, the Jewish people have to make this fateful decision. Which way do they want to go? All right, so Kliyakar and Rabbeinu Bachia, medieval commentaries that really explore further dimensions to this issue. Let's see, the Kliyakar, Ephraim Wunschitz, he has a psychological interpretation between Ishmael's behavior in Genesis and the spies' behavior in Bamidbar. So he focuses on the idea of a mocking, playing, or clashing is a difference of opinion, exactly what he was doing wrong. But that prompted her to throw him out into the wilderness of Paran. So the Kliya Kar notes that Paran is a place intrinsically charged, right, based on that initial moment. So now Paran means strife, division, and conflict. So by staging the spy mission from Paran, the people allowed the energy of Moshe and Hashem. So this is a deeper understanding of what Paran and Ishmael represented. And so the idea is that was they had to make a choice, right? It's a drop dead moment. You have to make a choice. Which way do you want to go? Because this is what if you can't do it, well, then you're choosing Ishmael. If you can't do it, you have to override conflict and strife. And at that moment, they were unable to do it. Rabbeinu Bachya, he says that Paran represents the domain of the outside forces, right? That's where the wilderness was. The wilderness, right, is a shomemai. It's desolate. There are wild animals. You have the descriptions in the Varim about what the wilderness represents. So that sense of wildness, again, whether it's through ethical, non-ethical conduct, or just through not having any kind of civilization or culture, is what Paran represents. So he says that the Torah hints at the outcome that the Bnei Israel stepped into this spiritual territory defined by exclusion from the land, just as Ishmael was sent into Golas, was exiled. That's what the Jewish people were choosing at this time, and so they were influenced by that identity. And they were crying that they would rather die in the desert than crossing the border. So the bottom line is that the Jewish people were choosing the desert over entry into the land of Israel. That watershed moment of Paran, that dun, dun, dun. Are you ready to make that choice? Go into the land or not? Or are you going to be like Ishmaelites who were exiled and represent wildness, both in terms of ethical conduct and in terms of non-compliance with a more spiritual kind of an approach. So basically what I'm arguing is that Bnei Israel chose to remain in the wilderness and not to carry on the covenant like Yitzchak and Eretz Israel. And yes, it was that generation. Right, so I'm still arguing. Yes, they failed. They failed miserably. But the choice and the test is part of the covenant as well, right? And so therefore, I'm not looking at this as a punishment from Hashem from above. Oh, you were a bad boy, and so now you're not going to get entry into the land of Israel. It's really the Bnei Israel's choice. And it was exactly, it was the consequence of their choices. Wasn't necessarily a punishment in an external sense. Going on here based on these little subtle hints in the text, right? So they chose to follow Ishmael. They chose to follow to be like, I want to be like Ishmael. Right? The slogan would have been be like, what was it? Nike, what was it? Be like money. Here it's be like Ike. And they didn't want to be like Ike. You like that one? That was good. I came up with that right now. They wanted to be like Ish. They wanted to be like Ish. They chose Ish and he chose Ike. Right? So that's what the failure was. So, right, so they're not entry into the land of Israel was obvious. Well, you don't want to go, don't go. And we force children to go. But Hashem wasn't going to know. I'm taking you there no matter what. Sometimes you have to. Here, Jewish people were treated like adults. Okay, you don't want to go. I'm not going to force you to go. But Hashem didn't give up on them either, on them, right? So here, going back to the idea of the Ramban, they failed to actualize their Avrahamic potential, and therefore were not worthy of carrying on the covenant into Israel. But it was less a punishment than a natural result of their own choice. But even that choice, Hashem gave them the opportunity from the beginning. And it was always possible that they were going to fail. But so they stood at the edge of the land, but chose the identity associated with Paran and wilderness and Ishmael. Therefore, they remained in the wilderness, not because God rejected them, but because their choice revealed that they were not yet ready to live covenantally in the land. And so just to really nail this down even further, we see that Abraham also had 10 tests, right? This is from Pirkei Avos. Some of you might be learning Pirkei Avos during the summer, in the Shabbos afternoon, etc. I think we're doing that as Mishnah Yomis now as well. So in the fifth parak, the fact that Abraham actualized his potential through those 10 tests established him as the father of the covenant. But the wilderness generation's 10 tests reveal that they are not ready to become the covenantal nation in the land. So the 10 tests established the father, but the 10 failures reveal the unreadiness of the children. But the chiddush that we come up with today was that it was Hashem that also passed his test and didn't totally reject the entire Jewish people. So that's going to put in here. And 10 failures reveal, but also Hashem's readiness to accept failure and still work with the Jewish people. All right, so I'm adding that in here. So just to sum up, the permission to send the spies created the opportunity for a Nisayon, and the Nisayon, the test, revealed which aspect of Avram's legacy the generation had chosen to embody, leading to their remaining in the wilderness. But God does not abandon the covenant. Okay, so let's go back and go to page 6, because it still bothers me though. Like if this approach, then I mean, still Chazal, right, emphasize Hamaraglim and hate and punishment. So why is there such an emphasis on the sin, right? Which I'm not disputing, right? I don't want you to leave saying, "Oh, my irony thinks that they were the best generation, right? From the World War II generation, the greatest generation. They're not the greatest generation, but they were great in the sense of being the first ones to try it out, right? So Chazal emphasized the gravity of the sin and the pain of the consequence, and yeah, we'll point out, over the centuries, they right Tisha B'Av, this is rooted in the sin of the spies and of this generation. It continues on, not minimizing that. With all of that, the Torah itself continues beyond the decree, right? Hashem speaks to this generation of the additional mitzvos of bread and wine. And I'm going to talk about this more on Shabbos afternoon, because I couldn't put it all into one shear. But the fact is that Hashem gives the mitzvos of bread wine, and bread is dependent upon the land of Israel. We're going to explore it on a deeper level on Shabbos afternoon. I'm sure you're all going to come to that part of the shir. But it's astounding, right? Because the point is that they'll only be operative in the land if this generation will not inherit it. Hashem is still giving them this mitzvah. He's saying, hey, you didn't succeed, but the next generation will. And this is what I think is so beautiful of this. Hashem kept them in the parsha, if I can say it that way. He didn't just reject them, but he said, I'm giving you this to give even you hope. The generation of the desert was given hope that just because
they still miss themselves, particularly the Balak and Noah.
And these people are not Boachem. These are Dafka, the ones that are not Boachem. And they're still giving the land. Boachem, sorry, Boachem is go to the land, go into that land. So that gave them, oh, wait a second, we're not totally rejected. Oh, so the next generation will have that ability to fulfill. But I think the deeper point, though, that is, no, once we are part of the covenant with Hashem, our generations don't matter. Yes, we have grandparents and grandchildren, and this generation and the third generation, we have the door of the wilderness and the door of the generation of the Midbar, the generation of Israel. But Hashem is talking to us as part of the Torah. We're all one generation. We're all the Jewish people. I don't know if I'm explaining myself clearly, because on some level it doesn't matter that they're not. They're still part of that's what Hashem is teaching us. They were all part of the Jewish people. Even the ones that fail are still getting the Torah, and they're still the ones that are entering. You're still entering the land, basically. Even though you're not entering the land, you're still entering the land. And they're all. For your future.